If you're in Seattle, and you need to buy or sell a home, we'll be right there for you. Because we're the realtors that you can trust. So go to ronanddonsitdown.com.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? And welcome to this edition now of The Ron and Don Show. And we are back live in the Let's Show Up studio.
What is up, Ron and Don Nation?
Hey, coming up on The Ron and Don Show, let's talk about Elvis a little bit. And the fact that, well, he's no longer with us. Elvis has left the building. But what happened to his estate? His estate, yeah. Seems like... I don't know, this started at the Heartbreak Hotel or maybe somewhere down in the ghetto.
Oh, hold on. It's been a while. You got to give me a little
Upshaw. I gave you the point.
It's not that. I haven't used this machine in like 6 years.
Oh.
I don't remember where all the buttons are.
Let's start over. Elvis' estate, Priscilla, seems like the estate has now gone sideways. Let's see. Did this all start at the Heartbreak Hotel or somewhere down in the ghetto? Yeah. We'll get to that story, or maybe we won't. Also, coming up, Mark Cuban, why did he really quit Shark Tank? And also the Dallas Mavericks, is he about to jump in with some other sharks? Yeah. Before we get to that, though, let's get to this. Ron, we just read the story. Is this the worst time to be alive? When is the worst time to be alive? Okay.
Yeah, there's this think piece when basically saying there's a lot of people that love to complain right now about a lot of different things. And they want to point out everything from the environment to human rights to non-organic foods to it goes on and on and on. It's very easy to find something to complain about in the modern world, capitalism, et cetera, et cetera. And so there was this think piece of going, okay, how bad of a time is this to be alive? And they talked to a scholar in London, and he was like, dude, yes, we have some problems right now, but on the whole, this is a great time to be alive, especially if you look back. He was looking back into like the 13th century Europe sort of history. And he's like, man, if you're talking the 900s, 10,000, 1100s or so in Europe, he's like, it's not even close. With you look at more infant mortality, regular mortality, lifespan, health span, technology, like you go down, war, human rights, etc. You just go across the line, and it was worse. However, there is one thing that I found very interesting. If you look at a different source, and the guy that wrote the book *Sapiens*, he talks about if you go way back in time to when they were just tribal communities, under 50 people, 50 to 75 people.
No, that's 60 people.
He's like, their life was actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot more leisure time than we do now. Once you had your basic needs taken care of, they had lots of times to lounge around.
You traveled. Many of them are nomads, right?
You traveled nomads.
Yep.
There was kind of a communal parenting thing that would happen.
Oh, boy.
And he was like, it was pretty good. There was not stresses. Like you didn't have to go to the office every day. He's like, you didn't necessarily have the same lifespan that we have today, but the life that you did have was fulfilling. You were connected to this community. You had a sense of purpose.
You're in great shape because you're always
in great shape.
You're always tracking.
So once we move from those nomadic hunter-gatherer tribes into cities, the first several thousand years of domesticating human beings, that was the worst time to be alive.
Yeah. When do you personally think is the worst time to be alive? And is there another time besides this that you would say, hey, if I could hit time travel one time, where would you go back and why?
I would go forward. I think that we progressively, it just gets better. Like the median income is better right now than it's ever been. The amount of war, even though there were some bombs dropped over the weekend here recently, The amount of war worldwide has never been lower. The wealth across the nations has never been higher. So, like, I would only want to go forward. Like, I don't think. I know there's this nostalgia to think back to, like, when America was great. It was only great for a very specific, small subset of people.
Yeah.
For everybody else, it wasn't great. So, I think, to me, I would only want to go forward. What about you?
Well, you'd think you want to be Kevin Costner and you want to be a cowboy in a cowboy movie, and then you and I worked in a kids camp in a horse ranch out in a place called the Lincoln National Forest, and living around those cowboys that only made $800 a month, and then thinking about the drive west and what happened to people when they came west. And even if you survived jumping on a boat and coming over the ocean, and then by the time you got to the East Coast, you're like, you know what, I'm going west. The chances of you ever getting west, I mean, only 40% of the people that set out to go west ever really got west. And then you're always pursuing something, whether it was when they put in the railroad and people decided that they wanted to go west because of the gold rush, and then to get to California and to find out, oh, not that much of a gold rush. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go up to Seattle and I'll hang out in Seattle. There's only 3,500 people living up there at the time before the turn of the century. I live in a place called Pine Street where there actually are pine trees. And Seattle was a cliff. That's why they had to grade the city down 3 different times. We had 2 major fires. Living through those fires and then finally saying, well, the gold is really up in the Yukon Peninsula. So I'm going to head up to the Yukon Peninsula. So let's see if you can survive that. So I think about the drive to come west, how hard it was to come west. I think about how hard it was on the Native Americans when they had to defend themselves. And also when all of a sudden they figured out horses and guns would be the way to fight all these people that are coming west, right? So you think about the violence, you think about the turbulence. You look at those Kevin Costner movies, and they're very long and boring for a reason, because it was to come west. It was pretty long, it was pretty boring, and it was stacked against you whether you'd make it or not. And then I think about a time that I would like to live. I'm very curious about what it was like during the Civil War. Like, I would have loved to be there when Pickett made his charge.
If they wiped your memory of where you came from, every period thinks they are at the most advanced stage, unless you go back to before the the Enlightenment era. And so as long as your memory is wiped of 2025, if you're going from 2025 to 1860, it's horrible. But if they wiped out all the memory of 2025, then you would just be in 1865 and you think, okay, this is the way life is.
Yeah, and I think sometimes what happens, I really believe when we stop mowing our lawns, we stop talking to each other, we stop borrowing tools, we stop cooking together, we stop being a neighbor. Even in my neighborhood, it's really turned over. And last year, you and I did something where we went and got a taco truck and an ice cream cart, and we invited our clients to come over, and we're going to do something similar again this year, but we also invited the neighborhood. My relationship in the neighborhood since doing that is very, very different, because it kind of broke the ice, and people are talking.
Well, it's the mariachi band.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the mariachi band.
People are talking and chatting with each other again, and I don't know what anyone's politics is, and no one was there complaining. And since then, if someone needs a plumber or electrician, they know I'm the guy, so they dial me up and we talk. It's very lovely to go up and down the alley in the back where I have a cottage. The people that stay in the cottage, they say your neighbors are so nice, and they love seeing the kids play, the dogs walk. There was none of that going on before, and now the neighbors are inviting other neighbors. Like I went over the other day. I have a neighbor that's from India. They had a daughter that's graduating, and they had this very traditional celebration that my son and I got to be a part of. It was beautiful and really cool.
Well, I think people underestimate the power of tacos, and I'm not even joking. Tacos might be more profound than even pizza. I think pizza, everyone has thought of that's the number one American food. try having a bad day when you're having a taco party. Like, try.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Well, I think, and I think what it really comes down to is all of us get on social media. We're trying to top each other, and it's very. There's not a lot of civil conversations going on anymore. It's really easy to get on there and complain and be mad and be upset. And then I think a lot of the culture around us, a lot of the videos that we watch, a lot of the things that we read, a lot of the things that parade as news shows, as I've talked before, it just kind of feeds that silo mentality.
When you fantasize or daydream about going back to Civil War time, are you a male soldier? Like, are you exactly who you are right now? But back
No.
Are you a woman? Are you a general? Are you an infantry? Who are you?
I'm just a journalist.
You're a journalist?
Yeah, and I'm a coward because those wars were brutal. But when I got onto those battlefields, like when I went to the Gettysburg battlefield, you don't realize
so you're a guy in a suit with a notebook.
That's 26 square miles, and you look around that battlefield and you see all these Americans that killed each other. I want to talk to them, and I want to know why, and I want to know what drove them, and not what I read in a history book. Because history is always, the victors always tell the story of history.
So
right?
you're a Don the journalist.
Yeah.
On the East Coast of the United States. And you're covering the war.
And I'm an observer because, boy, I don't. The way that they killed each other was so brutal.
God, that would be muddy and cold.
And it's incredible to me
brutal.
that the United States is still together after that. That's why when I see some of the things that are happening now that I think will blow our union apart, if that didn't blow it apart, I don't know that anything will. So, but yeah, I'm a stone cold coward. So I'm the journalist standing on the sideline.
Interesting.
Yeah, more in a minute. Hey, you guys, it's Ron and Don here for Les Schwab. And right now, Les Schwab tires save up to $80 instantly on a select set of 4 tires. In fact, Ron, you can choose from all-weather tires for year-round traction, or what about EV or hybrid tires? They're designed for durable electric performance or rugged terrain tires made to handle dirt, gravel, and I love to go adventuring. What about you?
Yeah, plus every tire comes with America's best tire warranty, including a 60-day satisfaction guarantee. And check this out, free lifetime maintenance, FREE. I love that. Just another way you get more from less. Stop by your neighborhood Les Schwab or learn more at leschwab.com. That's leschwab.com. This is a limited time offer while supplies last. See leschwab.com/sale for details.
If you have a friend that is ready to start their real estate journey, send them to ronanddonsitdown.com.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. Let's talk Big Dumper a little bit. No, Matt, off the mic, we're not talking about you. We're talking about Cal Raleigh. How cool is that? That's a great baseball. That's just a great name, right?
It is. I don't watch every single game like you do, but this is an historic season we are witnessing.
What's really
here in
incredible,
Seattle.
if you don't know Cal Raleigh is, he plays catcher for the Seattle Mariners, which means he's out there almost every single day, and you're catching for other pitchers.
Well, and here's the thing. If you look in baseball history, catcher typically has the lowest batting average of any position player in baseball on every team. And the reason why is because you're not there for your bat. You're there to run the game. And when you look at like managers now, disproportionately catchers become managers later in their career because when they're players, they're running the game. They're calling every pitch. They're sort of the captain on the field. And so you can bat .218 and be an all-star catcher. And so what he's doing right now, and it's so hard on your legs and knees that it's very, very rare to have a catcher do what he's doing.
Yeah, and the weird thing is he's a switch hitter. So he hits from the right, he hits from the left. He has the most home runs in baseball right now. He has more home runs than Aaron Judge has. They're talking about him as they go to the All-Star break. Maybe
he's on pace for 67 home runs.
Maybe he should be the MVP. Sometimes you hit the break, though, and you get on the other side, and it slows you down. Great teams get on the other side of the break, and they're not great anymore. Usually Julio Rodriguez, who's not great before the break, gets on the other side. We finally get some heat, Like he plays well when it's hot out. Some people blame that on the marine layer, but he heats up in the heat. So anyway, going back to Cal Raleigh, I think the magic number is 48 all time for a catcher as far as home runs go. And now they're starting to compare him to great catchers like Johnny Bench. The point that you make, Ron, is right. Not only is he calling that game with 5 or 6 starting pitchers, but then you have other pitchers that get hurt, so then they're calling guys up from AAA. You got to coach those guys up and coach that game. And then all the relievers that come into the game. So over the course of a season, you could be working with somewhere between 40 and 50 pitchers. On top of that, it's very hard to steal on him. He'll throw you out. And
he got a Platinum Glove Award.
Yeah.
He's the best in baseball.
And he's stolen, and he's a big guy, man. He has stolen over 20 bases so far this year. So the Mariners gave him a pretty good deal last year. They didn't give him a superstar deal. And I'm just wondering if...
Well, we'll trade him to the Yankees.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm
or the Red Sox.
That's what I'm concerned about. And you have a player like Cal Raleigh. You know that Julio's going to heat up. And again, we don't talk a lot of sports around here. They keep saying when healthy that we have the best pitching staff in baseball. But what you really need to go win a championship is you need another bat. It is embarrassing. It is embarrassing, and it should be embarrassing for the Mariners as well to have never been to the World Series.
Oh my God, it's embarrassing.
And to never have had a chance to win the pennant. They're the only team in baseball where this has ever happened. And sometimes I just wish they would sell the team. There is so much money in the great Pacific Northwest. You saw this with Paul Allen when he finally got his arms around the Seahawks. He knew that he was dying, and he knew his legacy. He knew what that legacy wanted to be. I'm going to build the stadium. I'm going to build the brain bank. I'm going to build South Lake Union. I'm going to go out and I'm going to discover the ship that was sunk zigzagging that actually dropped off the 2 bombs that were dropped on Japan, and then it was sunk and torpedoed, the last ship to go down in World War II. He found that with one of his research vessels, the Octopus, right before he died. And he really wanted, because let's not forget, there's a guy named Ken Baring that loaded up the buses. And they used to practice at Northwest Bible College, right? That's like practicing at a middle school. And he ended up packing up the buses. He took this team down to Los Angeles. And then he ended up selling the team. And it was Paul Allen who stepped in. He bought this team. He invested in this team. And it's a little different than basketball and baseball in that in football, you can spend the same amount of money because of a salary cap, but there's other things that you can do by building a great stadium, a great facility, being great to players, having great benefits, and giving them lots of guaranteed money, and then listening to a guy like Pete Carroll or John Schneider when they say this is the team that we want to build. I don't see that with the current ownership of the Mariners, and I just feel like they're going to be 8 games over 500 again. They're going to miss the playoffs by a game or two like they've been doing for the and
make it to the first
we are
round.
Wasting this opportunity with a guy like Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, some of the other players that they have, this great pitching staff. This is when you have to step up, and I don't see this organization doing it, and I think people are tired of it. It's interesting, though, when you go to a game, it's very expensive to go to the game. Last time I went to the game, I told my son and his friends that were along with us that they could get a hat, they could get a shirt, and they could get anything they wanted to eat. $600 later.
Yeah.
So I look around at all these fans that continue to come and continue to come and continue to come. They continue to believe. Some of those fans that are older now are there with their kids. They were there with their mom and dad. They deserve to have a winner here in the city of Seattle. They deserve to have a contender. And the time is now to make this
especially
team
when you look at
a championship team with someone like Cal Raleigh.
You look at the ownership groups of the Mets or the Red Sox or the Cubs or the Dodgers, the Padres. Like when you watch that Dodger team, you're like, yes, it was expensive, but my God, like how do you compete against that? So I agree with you that the Mariners, the fact that the Diamondbacks and the Marlins and these teams came into existence after the Mariners came into existence have all made it to the postseason.
And they don't have a
the
fan.
Rockies.
They don't have a fan base like we do.
Championships.
They don't have a fan base like we do.
And it's sad.
It's a catch-22 because what's going to happen is a lot of fans are going to go out there. They're going to buy Raleigh jerseys. They're going to take their kids out if he continues to go on this run, especially as he approaches 48 and 49 home runs, and then all of a sudden he becomes the most home runs for a catcher in baseball, and then he starts bearing down if he does.
Griffey Jr.'s record.
Yeah. So fans are going to come out. You're going to fill the stadium, and this damn ownership team is going to look at that and say, hey, we're making money. Why should we go spend money on another team here? So it drives me a little nuts. Speaking of sports, was it hard for you to watch the Oklahoma – they used to be the Sonics. Was it hard for you to watch the Thunder win the championship?
It was. I have such a vivid memory of when that team was stolen, and to give you credit, you were the only guy in the media that called Howard Schultz out to his face, and you said it
on the phone
on day one.
You hung up on
that the team was moving to Oklahoma City, and you called it on day one.
Yeah,
and you and I started our radio careers with the Supersonics, so it's very. I don't know or have any connection with this group from Oklahoma. Like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander seems like a great player and a great star. I don't wish badly on the individuals. Like these kids were, these players now were probably 2 years old when this went down, or 3. So nothing against them personally, but that ownership group and the people in Seattle that let that happen, I still am bitter.
What pisses me off is when you look at Paul Allen, even Bill Gates, like. Bill Gates made sure, even though he can live anywhere around the world, he keeps his home here, right? And then he also keeps his
foundation
here, and he appreciates when he talks about Seattle, what Seattle has done for him, because he couldn't get it done in Albuquerque, so he got it done here. Paul Allen was the same way in that he felt like he needed to give back.
And both those people grew up here.
Yeah.
They went to Lakeside High.
Even though that Jeff Bezos has left the building, I don't know if he keeps a home here anymore. When you look at some of the taxes, the way that you're taxed, I think he can afford the taxes, but evidently he lives in Florida now, and he sold his main home here. But I'm sure he has 6 or 7 other homes.
Well, he's a Washington, D.C. guy.
He's
not a Washington guy.
Yeah, but when I look at Mr. Coffee, you look at what the city of Seattle did for you. And he didn't create Starbucks. Starbucks was created by somebody else. He just took it over. He had a vision. He made it better. But his first support system was not only here in Seattle, but it was also from Bill Gates' father. Like Bill Gates' father sat down with him and helped Howard Schultz
and he
figure this
soured on
out.
that team because he got in a pissing match with Gary Payton.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, be a man.
Yeah.
Like, pay Gary Payton. And it was so juvenile and stupid.
And when he sold the team to Clay Bennett, he knew he did a backdoor deal. He knew that Clay Bennett was taking that team to Oklahoma City. He knew exactly what he was doing. And it's like, didn't you make enough money? Or couldn't you have sold it to someone that you knew? Because there was somebody else that wanted to buy it, but they didn't have as much money as Clay Bennett had. And Clay Bennett is an oil and gas guy from Oklahoma City that came up to buy the team.
Well, he married into the Walton family.
Yeah, and then he pretended like he was shopping for a stadium around here, which he wasn't doing. He was taking the team back the whole time. And to me, for Howard Schultz to do that, it's unforgivable. Some of the best memories I have is of us when we started our radio career, watching those 95 teams and watching the mailman deliver, watching Stockton to Malone, certainly watching
Steve Scheffler come off the bench.
Oh my gosh, watching Charles Barkley of the Phoenix Suns, watching George Karl,
Dude,
who was the coach of the Sonics, and Charles Barkley go out and party their arses off the night before, and then come out and play a championship
every once
game.
in a while.
And of course, Michael Jordan taking on the Seattle Seahawks and the Rain Man
the
and Kevin
Supersonics.
Calabro. What's that?
The Supersonics.
He did.
You said the Seahawks.
Oh,
Michael Jordan probably could take on the Seahawks.
probably could.
Every once in a while on my social feed, I'll get a Kevin Calabro loop going.
Oh my God!
It's 5 chickens in a barnyard, baby.
Get up on that magic carpet and ride. More on the other side.
Thanks for being a part of the Ron and Don Nation. Subscribe to The Nation News at ronanddonsitdown.com. A behind-the-scenes look at everything Ron and Don.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. Let's talk about Elvis Presley here for a moment. Do you know where you were when Elvis died? I was in a trailer. It was my grandparents' trailer. I was with my cousin Debbie. She was making brownies in the trailer. We were at Channel Lake State Park. And I feel like, and I'd have to go look at, I feel like I was 7 or 8 years old. And I remember my mother sobbing when we heard the news over the radio that Elvis died. And none of us could believe that. And I don't know why that is, but for whatever reason, it had a profound impact on my mother, which I think had a profound impact on me. Fast forward, when Elvis died in his 40s, and he, of course, had an addiction issue. When you look at his wife Priscilla, they credit her with kind of saving his estate, because they said collectively he was worth, and Graceland and all that, a lot of it was in debt, like Michael Jackson. But they say that he may have had about $1 million in his bank account. And then over the years, we hear about how brilliant she was and how she went in and then she turned Graceland into this museum. I've never been there. I hear it's a dump. Have you been there?
I have not. I also hear it's a dump.
Yeah, I hear it's a dump. They got one of his old airplanes outside, some of his cars and all that. But people pay a lot of money. I looked the other day. I think it's like $75 to go in and roll through there. The upstairs where he died is velvet roped. There's only certain people that are allowed to go up there, and Priscilla is allowed to go up there, and then her daughter goes up there. We hear about Priscilla's daughter then dying this horrible death. Priscilla was credited with fixing the estate and getting proper money for and licensing agreement for his catalog and all that.
And she's had a huge settlement with Colonel Parker before he died.
Yeah, and then when Priscilla's daughter died,
Lisa Marie.
Yeah, and then she left her part of the estate to her daughter. It seems like her daughter, I think, is in her 30s now, is pretty buttoned up and is kind of what Priscilla used to be. So I don't know if there were some cognitive developments or issues here for Priscilla, but what happened? Because it seems like she was caught in a trap and she couldn't walk out. What do you think happened?
I think that this is a woman that, if we look through it through a 2025 lens, Elvis Presley approaches her at 14 years old.
Yeah.
Grooms her to be his wife and then marries her at 18. And so I don't know what happened between 14 and 18, but she then, they have Lisa Marie and then they got divorced. And so I think, and she's left in her early 20s with a child, very famous, but with no way to generate income. I think it turned her into basically a pariah onto the Elvis Presley name, the Presley name. And so Elvis was no genius either. The deal that he had with his record label and with his manager were horrible. He spent money like it was water just going through his hands. And so I don't know if I would agree with you that she's the one that revived this career. Like, it was all done out of desperation and out of greed, as far as you can
by
tell.
her,
by the whole clan.
Yeah.
I understand. There's sometimes where you want to protect someone's legacy. There's other times where you're just milking a cash cow. And so when you look at the Elvis Presley estate and the legacy and the music rights and all that, everybody was exploitative, as far as I can tell, from day one. Like, yes, you're kind of supporting his legacy and his stardom, but it was always about money. It was always about milking this guy. It was always about opportunism. And Priscilla was no different. And then Lisa Marie followed right into her footsteps. And Lisa Marie became an opportunist and then married Michael Jackson for a minute. And like, it was all a circus. And I think that level of stardom and that level of notoriety, combined with zero sophistication and very little understanding of how business works or the music industry works, created this no-win situation. So Lisa Marie then teamed up with some auctioneer that was trying to auction off stuff and create a memorabilia business.
Then
and
somebody retitled Graceland and tried to steal it from the whole estate.
yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess from get-go, and it's not protecting the legacy. It's not like you look at. Let's take like John Lennon might be a peer or at the same stature of Elvis in a lot of ways. You look at like his estate and the way that Yoko Ono has shepherded John Lennon's legacy. That to me seems, yes, she's profiting off of that in a way, but it just seems to come from a different place. Do you agree with that?
I think so. I do have to say some of my favorite parts of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is when you go there and you see some of the Elvis's guns, and then you see his badge collection. They have it at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and everywhere he went,
He was deputized.
I love the fact that he showed up at the White House.
There's a great movie about that. Great in air quotes.
Yeah.
Interesting movie.
And then I also, the tragedy of it is he was doing so many movies because he needed the money. And he would do movie after movie, and sometimes he'd be taping a movie.
Mike.
And he had to be Mike, because they're like... my sisters used to watch all those
Mike Goes to Hawaii
movies in the summer, and they would sit there and they'd get up and they'd do all the beach dances.
Mike Goes to Vegas.
And it was always Mike, and I'm like...
Mike Goes to Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I always wonder, why is he Mike in every single movie? And it's because he was doing so many of them at the time that they didn't want him to forget who he was or use a different name, and they were just pumping those things out, and people
So
loved
is
him.
Priscilla turning 80 this year and just trying to hang on with her?
The fun thing is,
got.
if you ever have you ever listened to the Elvis channel on Sirius XM radio?
I mean, briefly.
a lot of his old band guys narrate.
He has some great musicians.
And then they all used to get high with him. It's
Of
like,
course.
if we don't get high, if we don't take uppers, if we don't have down, because sometimes he'd just be up in the middle of the night and he'd want to jam, and they'd have to take an upper and be ready to go. And if they didn't do downers with him, because you had to sleep when he wanted to sleep, you had to be up when he wanted to be up. So all those guys were popping the same pills. And if you didn't, he dumped you and got rid of you. I think we saw the same behavior with Michael Jackson. You just start surrounding yourself with people that are going to allow that addiction to not only control your life, but to control the lives of the people around you. So anyway, at the end of the day, the ending was not as sweet as Tupelo Honey.
Did he have a song called Tupelo Honey? Was Van Morrison, wasn't it?
All right, we're going to Graceland. Don, obviously you want to get into Graceland proper?
Yeah, how much?
Well, do you want?
I'm guessing $68.
Wait, do you want access to the VIP exhibit? You get a VIP badge as well, and you get front of line mansion access.
Is that where you get to go upstairs and see the bathroom where he was sitting on the toilet?
This is just front of line to get in the mansion plus the VIP exhibit.
Do you get to walk through the jet?
Don wants the VIP. How much is VIP?
Okay, well, moving up from there, do you want the expert guide? Self-guided or expert guide?
Expert guide. VIP
They
expert
consider
guide.
it a mansion, but in the South, everything's a mansion. And sometimes a mansion down
I'm going,
there, they have pillars, but they're only 2,000 square feet. That's
100
all right.
Right, you want
$189.
We're not at the top yet.
Okay.
Okay, you get the artifact show and tell. Do you want? Do you want? This is it. Do you want the Q&A with the Graceland archivist?
Yes. The full meal deal. How
Full
much?
meal.
Oh,
deal.
speaking of meal, do you want a meal with it?
Yes.
It's corn and some
How
barbecue
much?
or something.
You're joking.
No,
get-
it's $25 extra for the meal. I've had that meal, and it's just a barbecue on the street.
You've been to Graceland?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And how much?
I think I had the meal and didn't go into Graceland.
Okay. How much for all that?
Yeah, what,
I'm up to $125.
I'm going $215.
$250, ladies.
Wow. Matt, off the mic, what was your reflection on Graceland? Was it? I hear my mom told me it's a lot smaller than you think, and then also the tour is pretty quick.
We didn't do it. We just went and we looked over. We stood on our toes and looked over the fence. We didn't have the money, right? So we stood on our toes and looked over the fence. And then we went across the street and had the meal and looked at the gift shop and left. That was it.
So there's a gift shop across the street.
Yeah, the gift shop. Yeah, it's like there's the mansion itself, and then there's the whole complex.
Were there a
gift
lot of
shop.
people there?
Yeah, I suppose so. Not like wasn't crowded. I don't know.
That's pretty amazing. Wow.
But it's just like it was. I mean, it's like on Aurora.
Is it in a ghetto part?
On Aurora.
Is it in a, it's in the ghetto.
It was
In the
Ron.
ghetto.
It's in the ghetto. Yeah. Hey, you guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ron and Don Show. We sure appreciate it. We also appreciate Grace and Matt off the mic and my son and Charlie the dog. He's Ron, I'm Don, the executive producers and the big talent on this show. Also, don't forget, we love being your friends, your broadcasters, but your real estate brokers. We have entered a time right now where if you've been thinking about buying, this is where you jump in. And if you're thinking about selling, you better be strategic about what you're selling, how you're framing the sale, and how you're bringing that to market. So just taking a home, throwing up a sales sign, not having a strategy, and just throwing it on the market, that's not going to work right now. That works with discount brokers, or it used to during COVID times. That doesn't work now. That's why you pay a real estate broker. And make sure when you're talking to a broker, you negotiate your commission. They don't get to decide what the commission is. You do. And if you're the seller, a lot of times you'll determine what happens on both sides of the deal. If you got a broker that's not doing much because you have this amazing home, you've taken great care of it, and all you need for them to do is take some pictures and do the paperwork, that's a different commission than someone that's going to come out and say, hey, you know what? We got to get everything out of your house. We got to touch every surface. We have to put a new roof on this place. And that commission is going to be very, very different than if you don't have deferred maintenance. So keep that in mind. If you're an investor, now is a great time to also think about investing. And if you want to be a house hacker, maybe you buy a duplex, you live in one door. While you're fixing that up, you rent out the other door. Once you have that fixed up, you move in there, you renovate that one, and then you rent the one you just moved out of for more. You buy 2 doors, and then you do something called the stack. Then you buy 4 and 6 and 8, and the next thing you know, you'll have a 48-door apartment building. 48 doors means 48 checks coming to you each and every month. So buying, selling, investing, Ron and Don Real Estate, we're here for you. We'd love to sit down with you. All you have to do is go to ronanddonsitdown.com. We'll sit down with you today. We'll talk about a strategy. And if we can't help you, we'll find someone that will. And if we don't think you should sell your real estate, we'll tell you that too. And sometimes we do that. Sometimes it is not the time. Like a condo in certain communities right now may not be the time to sell that condo. So you want to be a buy and hold investor and wait till a different part of the year to sell that condo. And we could talk about the strategies for that versus if you have a house out on an island, or you have something that's on the east side, or you have something that needs to be fixed. Should I fix it up and sell it? Or should I sell it and let somebody else come in and flip this house, or come in and tear this house down? We can talk about that at ronanddonsitdown.com. Get signed up for our newsletter. Also, we have a buyer's playbook and a seller's playbook. You can write us. You can write Ron at ronanddon.com or Don at ronanddon.com. Till next time, keep your head up and your shoulders back. You've been listening to the Ron and Don Show only on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Thanks for listening to the Ron and Don Show. Please hit subscribe.